All right, so let's get into it with this deep dive. Um, we're talking about this story you sent in called Dorm Room Nightmare. It was pretty wild reading through this one. And I have to say, even just reading it, it definitely gave me the chills.
Yeah, firsthand accounts, these are always just fascinating, right? We're not just dealing with theories or statistics or, just general advice, but like
Yeah.
we're really getting into the very specific nitty-gritty details of your experience with a less than ideal roommate.
To put it mildly, right? So the story starts off with the arrival of Dale, the roommate, right? And immediately there are just some, let's call them quirks. Let's call them some quirks that would make anyone just raise an eyebrow.
It's interesting you mentioned that the lack of a proper introduction because most people, even if they are shy, they will at least exchange names, right? But it's almost as if Dale was intentionally trying to remain anonymous, which is a little unsettling when you think about it.
Yeah, and you picked up on that too, right? That it wasn't just shyness. There was something a little bit more calculated about that silence.
Yeah.
And then there's a detail about him sitting in the same spot for hours. I mean, everyone has their own routines, but that seems a little excessive, don't you think?
Yeah, it could be a sign of deep-seated anxiety or like obsessive compulsive tendencies. Some individuals find comfort in really rigid routines, and they become extremely distressed when those routines are disrupted. But of
Mhm.
course, without a professional evaluation, it's impossible to say for sure.
Right. Okay, so we've got awkward silence.
Mm.
We got a rigid routine, not exactly the makings of a buddy comedy, right? But then things start to take a little bit of a darker turn, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned Dale staring at you while you slept, which is just beyond creepy.
Oh, yeah, that's a major violation of personal space for sure. And it's a very clear indication that Dale wasn't respecting appropriate social boundaries. And it's that kind of behavior that triggers our very primal fear response, right? Our fear of predators.
Exactly. It's like something out of a horror movie. And then there was that bizarre incident in the campus garden. You described Dale muttering to himself while rubbing the bark of a tree. What do you make of that?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting from a psychological standpoint. It could be a manifestation of some kind of underlying mental health issue, perhaps a form of psychosis or delusional thinking. The repetitive behavior, the muttering, the fixation on the tree, those could all be signs of something more serious, something going on beneath the surface.
Okay, now I'm officially freaked out, but
Yeah.
it gets even worse, right? You discover that Dale had been going through your computer, emails, open files, access. It's like he was trying to steal your identity or something.
Yeah, that's a classic example of what we call boundary crossing behavior.
Yeah.
It's basically this pattern of actions that just disregards the personal space, the privacy, and the autonomy of other people. And in a roommate situation like this, it's especially troubling because it creates this environment of just like fear and mistrust.
And it didn't stop there, right? You found your belongings had been messed with, like he was digging for something specific in your bag. This wasn't just random snooping. It felt targeted, almost obsessive.
Absolutely. And the escalation of that behavior is particularly concerning, right?
Yeah.
Because it went from kind of passively observing you to actively invading your personal space and your possessions, which suggests a growing preoccupation with you and a disregard for your right to privacy.
It's almost like he was trying to assert some sort of like control over you to establish dominance in this weird, unspoken way. And then, of course, comes the climax of this whole saga. You catch Dale red-handed going through your bag in the middle of the night, and his excuse about the toothbrush. Come on.
Oh, yeah, that's a textbook example of gaslighting, right? Trying to make you doubt your own perceptions and question your own sanity. It's a manipulative tactic often employed by abusers to just deflect responsibility and maintain control.
It's amazing how quickly your gut feeling went from something's off to, I need to get out of here. And you did absolutely the right thing by switching rooms, because nobody should have to live in that constant state of fear and anxiety, especially in their own home.
Yeah. And it's testament to your resilience and your self-awareness that you recognized the danger and took action to protect yourself. But as we know, this wasn't the end of the story. Dale's attempt to break into your new room is where things take a truly sinister turn. But we'll dig into that more after we come back.
We're back, and I am still just reeling from that attempted break-in. It's one thing to have a roommate who's a little off, but have someone actively trying to get into your room, that's like a whole other level of scary.
Yeah, it really crosses the line from unsettling to like downright dangerous.
Mm.
And what's so chilling is that escalation, right? It starts with these subtle boundary violations and then it progresses to like this physical invasion of space and then ultimately culminates in a direct threat to your safety.
Yeah, this isn't just a case of bad roommate anymore. This is starting to feel like something out of a psychological thriller. It really makes me wonder, how often do these kinds of situations actually occur, especially in college settings, where you're often living with complete strangers?
It's actually more common than you might think. A study published in the Journal of Interpersonal Violence found that nearly 20% of college students experience some form of stalking or harassment by a peer. And those are just the reported cases. Many students, especially freshmen, might not even recognize the signs or feel comfortable reporting it.
That's terrifying.
Hmm.
So what are some signs that students should be looking out for? We've talked about the staring, the muttering, the going through personal belongings. But are there any other red flags that might indicate that a roommate is crossing the line?
Controlling behavior is a huge one, like trying to dictate who you
Right.
can see, where you can go, what you
Mhm.
can wear. Those are all big warning signs. Excessive jealousy, possessiveness, or constantly needing to know your whereabouts can also be indicative of a problematic personality.
Okay, so let's say you find yourself in this situation. You've got a roommate who's exhibiting some of these red flags, maybe not to the extreme of Dale, but enough to make you feel uncomfortable. What's the best course of action?
Well, first and foremost, trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. So don't dismiss your gut feeling as just being like overly sensitive or paranoid. It's basically your internal alarm system telling you that something's just not right.
Right, but then what? Do you try to confront the roommate directly? Do you go straight to the RA? I imagine it can be really tough to navigate that, especially when you're new to college and trying to make friends and everything.
I mean, it really depends on the severity of the situation and your own personal comfort level. If it's something relatively minor like playing music too loud or borrowing your things without asking, then like a direct but calm conversation might be enough just to clearly state your boundaries and expectations.
But what if talking doesn't work? Or what if the behavior is more serious, like going through your stuff or making you feel threatened?
Well, in those cases, it's really crucial to document everything. Keep a really detailed record of each incident, the date, time, specific behaviors, any witnesses. This basically creates this timeline that you can present to the RA or campus security if needed.
Yeah, documentation is so important because it's easy to downplay or forget details over time, especially when you're under stress. Having that written record just helps you stay grounded in reality and provides evidence if you need to take further action.
Absolutely. And don't hesitate to involve authorities.
Yeah.
Talk to your RA, contact campus security, or even consider filing a formal complaint with the university because they have resources and procedures in place to deal with these types of situations.
It's so important to remember that you're not alone in this. The university has a responsibility to create a safe living environment for all students, so don't be afraid to advocate for yourself and seek help when you need it.
And remember, even if the situation doesn't seem as extreme as the one that we're discussing right now,
Yeah.
any behavior that makes you feel unsafe, violated, or consistently disrespected is worth addressing. You deserve to live in a space where you feel secure and respected.
Yeah, this whole story has been such a powerful reminder about the importance of setting boundaries, trusting your instincts, and taking action when those boundaries are crossed.
Yeah.
But what about the long-term impact of an experience like this? Even though you escaped Dale, it's hard to imagine that something this intense wouldn't leave some lasting scars. So let's explore that a little bit more in detail. We've talked about the red flags and the boundary crossings and the importance of taking action. But even when you remove yourself from a situation like this, the impact doesn't just vanish overnight, right?
No, not at all. Experiences like these can have a really profound psychological impact, especially when they involve like this violation of your personal space and the sense of safety, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine being constantly on edge and questioning everyone's motives and feeling like your own home is no longer this safe sanctuary.
It's like your world has been completely tilted on its axis. You're trying to regain your footing, but the ground is constantly shifting beneath you. And in this story, there's that added layer of the sorry whispered outside the window. Even if it wasn't Dale, the uncertainty would be so unsettling.
Oh, absolutely. It's a form of psychological haunting, right? It's this lingering reminder that the threat might not truly be gone, and that ambiguity can really fuel anxiety and lead to hypervigilance. You're always scanning your environment for potential danger, even in seemingly safe situations.
So what can someone do to heal from an experience like this? Is it just a matter of time, or are there specific strategies or resources that can help someone reclaim their sense of safety and well-being?
Well, healing is a process and it looks different for everyone, but seeking professional help like therapy or counseling can be incredibly beneficial because a therapist can provide this safe space to process the trauma and develop coping mechanisms and work through, all these complex emotions that often accompany these types of experiences.
It's so important to remember that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. It takes a lot of courage to acknowledge that you need support and to reach out for it.
Exactly. And there is absolutely no shame in needing help to navigate the aftermath of a traumatic experience. It's kind of like recovering from a physical injury. You wouldn't expect yourself to just walk it off without proper care and attention, right? And the same applies to emotional and psychological wounds.
This deep dive has been quite a whirlwind of emotions, from the initial chills of just reading your story to the unsettling realization of just how common these situations can be. But I think the most important takeaway is the importance of trusting your gut, setting boundaries, and speaking up when something feels wrong. You are your own best advocate.
And remember, you're not alone in this. There are so many resources available, people who understand, and communities that are ready to support you. By sharing your story, you've not only helped us understand the complexities of these situations, but you've also given other people the courage to come forward and seek help if they need it.
So to everyone listening out there, what are your thoughts? Have you ever experienced anything similar? What advice would you give someone facing, a dorm room nightmare of their own? We'd love to hear your perspectives down in the comments. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and most importantly, keep those boundaries strong.